Good evening, and welcome to Sports Sound Off. My name's Randy Adkins, I'm your host, and welcome to our weekly conversation about local sports here in the Tampa Bay area. My guest this evening is John Reaves, former Gator, Buccaneer, Bandit quarterback. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight, talk about local sports. We're going to be focused on a lot about football, obviously, with football being back. The boys are back on the field, and it's great to see it. And, John, it's great to see you.
Well, thanks, Randy. It's great to be here with you, and thank goodness football season is starting.
Yeah, thank God. We actually get something to watch because, although the truth is, the Rays are doing great, but there's no fannies in the seats. I mean, it's sad to know that the guys are #2 record in baseball, and there are 10,000 people there at Tropicana Field. But I want to start off talking about you and how you're doing. First of all, for those that may be new to Sports Sound Off, we're here as a weekly conversation. We're talking about sports. We have a call-in segment. If you're interested in talking about how local sports are doing, the Bucks, the Rays, the Storm, the Lightning, call us or email us. That information will be on the screen for you momentarily. But make sure that you're able to get in touch with us because here's the deal. This is a conversation we want to continue to have. Sports in the Tampa Bay area have always been really big. We've been a great sports town, and John's legacy here has been certainly that. With John, as we talk about sports, you were here in the Tampa Bay area. You moved here as a child and went to Robinson. What was it like to be here in high school? During that time?
Well, it was great. I was born in Alabama, moved here when I was 7, grew up down off Bayshore off Euclid, and Robinson in those days was a powerhouse. In '64 is probably the greatest, or maybe '63 football game I ever saw at Old Phillips Field, Tampa U, was Robinson against Coral Gables. Wow. Larry Smith was a great All-American running back for Robinson, and Coral Gables kicked a 43-yard field goal as time went out to beat Robinson for the state championship. Wow. I was sitting in the end zone when that ball came through, and what a great game. That's still maybe the greatest high school football game I've ever saw. And then I got a chance to go to Robinson thereafter and be coached by Holland Applin, who was a great, brilliant coach and played at Tampa U. Right.
Now, I know the Applin name. I went to Chamberlain and know Doug Applin, so it's always a great legacy there. Now we'll go forward a little bit in your career. You were at Florida, of course. During the late '60s, early '70s. How was Gainesville at that time? It was turbulent during that time period all over America, but how was it in Gainesville?
Oh, it was great. Gainesville is just a magnificent college town. You had 60 or 80,000 people, I guess, there then.
Oh, there's that Gator.
Hey, all right, that's from like 1970 or something. But used to have a guy to go around and take pictures, and his nickname was Huck and Buck. He'd say, "All right, Huck and Buck, guys," when you're making your picture. But
that's great.
It was great. I think there were about 26,000 students there then, and but a beautiful campus, and it was like going to Camelot for me. Ray Reaves was the head coach, and it was a dream come true. I always wanted to be a Gator. Larry Smith was a hero of mine. Steve Spurrier was a hero of mine. To get a chance to go there and play was just a dream come true.
That's beautiful. I mean, now let me ask you. Everybody's got to ask you about this. Let's face it, you were part of one of the most famous plays in Florida history, the famous Florida flop. You're down in the Orange Bowl, you're beating up on Miami, but it's at the end of the season, and you're close to the career yards record. And the guys fell down on the field to let Miami score so you could get the record. What was that like?
Well, it would have been a tough year for us. We had a lot of injuries. I'd lost the receiving core, Carlos Alvarez and Andy Chaney, and we were basically going through a rebuilding time with our new coach, Doug Dickey, starting a lot of underclassmen. And we'd lost 3 or 4 close games that year, so neither one of us were having a great year. But we didn't talk about it much, but there was stuff in the paper that I needed like 350 yards the last game down in the Orange Bowl to break the NCAA passing yardage record set by Jim Plunkett the previous year. Right. And so I guess for the team and for us guys that had played there the whole time together, since we couldn't play for a championship, it was pretty neat to go for a national record instead. You know?
That's cool. It's amazing to think that the defense says, tell you what, we don't care if they score. We want our guy to get the record. Those guys must have loved you.
Well, I didn't really no, because we never talked about it. There was stuff in the paper, but it was a shock to me and a great honor that they would do something like that. Harvin Clark, our defensive captain, a cornerback, had returned a punt for a touchdown on the previous series.
Right.
A great run, and he came over. He says, "John, I'm sorry, because now you might not get the ball back." I said, "Don't be ridiculous. That was a great run. I still needed about 10 or 15 yards."
Right.
Then they mounted up a drive and drove down, eating up the clock, and Harvard kept running over, called 2 timeouts to ask Coach Dickey to do something about it. And finally, the 3rd timeout, he says, "All right, let them score somehow." I think they were on our 6th. And so Harvard went out there and told them all to lay down on the field, which they eventually call it the Florida flop. So on the snap, all of them flopped down on the polyturf it was there in the Orange Bowl.
On the polyturf.
Yeah, and the quarterback ran in, and we got the ball back, and I was able to hit Carlos Alvarez for the national record.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I mean, you think about that, how much love that shows. It's just a wonderful story. I mean, the guys would do that for you. You see those guys still today?
Yes, we had a reunion last year of, I graduated '72, but we had a reunion of our '69 team, and there were over 50 players there from that team, just showing the camaraderie and the closeness, close-knit Gator Nation that it is.
Yeah, how about them Gators?
Yeah.
That's right. Well, let's move on a little bit to your pro career. You started off drafted by the Eagles, 1st round. What kind of expectations did you have going into the NFL?
Well, I love football. It was always my dream to be a pro football player since I was young. I'd set that goal, and for me to get there was, what I'd always worked for. And, when I got there, I really didn't know what I was doing. At that time, quarterbacks called all the plays.
Right.
And, I'd never call plays hardly at all. And so here I am lining up against the defending Super Bowl champion Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, my.
And I'm trying to call plays, and it's like steam coming out of my ears, and I just pick something out of the hat. And I didn't know how to read coverages, so I wasn't very good like most rookies were back then. And that's why it used to take much longer to develop quarterbacks because of play calling, basically.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's true. I mean, now the guy comes in from the sidelines, the plays come into his helmet. He gets, probably his 1st and 2nd read from the coach. He knows what to expect, and at that time, that wasn't the case.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah. Now, you played, 3 seasons with Philly, 4 with Cincinnati, 2 with Minnesota, 1 in Houston. That's journeyman, I guess, people would call that kind of a career. How would you characterize your NFL?
Well, I wish it would have been better. I made a lot of mistakes, and I blew some opportunities and stuff, but I was kind of put into the backup quarterback role, and so whenever any team wanted a backup quarterback for their franchise guy, they might come after somebody like me,
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a role I had to learn, and I got better at it as I went along, and had some success. So when you don't get to play a lot, it's hard. As a backup, you don't get to practice. You run the scout team. We only had 2 quarterbacks, 40-man roster.
Right, you don't get the snaps in practice.
Then all of a sudden, invariably, you go out there, it's 3rd and 20, and it's 30 degrees, and you've been standing there.
Right.
So it takes a whole different mindset to try to become good at that.
Right. Now that makes sense. But then comes, what people remember in the 80s here in Tampa, which is bandit ball. You got Steve Spurrier on the sidelines who's like a magician.
Yes.
Making calls and movement, and you got all this excitement. You got the USFL with, Burt Reynolds and Lonnie Anderson and all the other things, and Donald Trump, all the things that go along with that. What was the USFL experience?
Oh,
like?
It was great because, it was another league. It gave us a chance to play. I got a chance to play for really the first time in 10 years almost, is to become a starter. Coach Spurrier gave me that chance. John Bassett, our owner, and our fans here were terrific. We averaged 45, 50,000 fans, and we had a good team. So it was a great opportunity, and we had a lot of good players in the league. And I think somebody said 2 years after the USFL folded, 28 of the 44 starters